Alright guys, it's Daddy, and it's Cooper, and we're doing Daddy and Cooper Reads.
Goofball.
Your goofball tonight?
Yeah.
Apparently it's goofball tonight. So we're doing Daddy and Cooper Reads. We're on chapter 9, The Real Story, and we're reading Harry Houdini's Hurry Up Houdini by Mary Pope Osborne. It's the Magic Tree House number 50, a Merlin mission book, and it's a New York Times bestseller. And again, we're on chapter 9. This is episode 13 of Cooper and Daddy Reads.
Dad,
weekly book review.
Oh,
I'm repeating myself. I already told him that. Okay. Thanks for letting me know, Coop. You keep me on track. What would I do without you?
I don't know.
I definitely don't know. I love you. Alright. Here we go, guys.
I'll be over here.
You'll be over there?
Yes.
Okay.
Hide under my cave.
Okay, hiding under your cave. Okay. So Daddy's going to start reading now.
Be under my cave right now.
Okay. Move this stuff so. There we go. Whoa! You're half man, half cave?
Hey, look.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You're a caveman. Half man, half cave. Caveman. Can you move over just a little bit, bud, so I can be on the bed and be comfortable? Thank you. Okay. Do you remember what happened last night?
No.
Harry Houdini did his magic show,
Mm-hmm.
and he did all his most important tricks. And remember the ring of truth that Jack wears? It didn't glow, so they didn't know why it didn't glow, because they saw the magic show and they didn't learn the true powers of Houdini. They didn't learn the master information they were supposed to learn for Merlin. Chapter 9, The Real Story. After the curtain closed, Jack could hear the joyful crowd leaving the theater. Mr. Dewey and Mr. Wilson, Butch and Hank, rushed from the wings to congratulate the Houdinis. Mr. Dewey actually went down on his hands and knees to thank them. "You made my audience very happy," he exclaimed. "And when my audience is happy, I am happy too." Great show," he said. "Man, he has really lost it," Jack said. Annie laughed. "Come on, I want to tell them great show too," she said. "Don't you?" But as Jack and Annie started toward the Houdinis, some teenage boys rushed on stage ahead of them. "Sorry, boys," said Mr. Wilson, stepping between the boys and the Houdinis. "Mr. Houdini is exhausted from his magnificent performance, and you'll have to buy a ticket and come back again. Come on, Harry. Let's just get these two out of here," Mr. Dewey said. As Mr. Dewey whisked Harry and Bess backstage, Jack and Annie followed them. Mr. Dewey ushered the couple into their dressing room. He hurried in after them and closed the door. Annie was about to knock, but Jack stopped her. "Don't bother them," he said. "Let them relax for a minute first. We'll see them when they come out." "Good idea," said Annie. Jack and Annie waited outside the Houdini's dressing room as the crew cleared all of the hooligans' fans from the stage. They waited as Hank and Butch took away Houdini's cabinet, his milk can, and his steamer trunk. They waited as Mrs. Crenshaw collected the bird and the rabbit cages and carried them away. They waited as Mr. Wilson swept the floor and turned off the stage lights. "They should be relaxed by now," said Annie. "No kidding," said Jack, as he tapped softly against the door. There was no answer. Annie knocked louder. "Bess? Harry?" she called. Still no answer. Annie tried the handle, but the door was locked. "They're gone," said Mr. Wilson, passing by Jack and Annie in the hall. "Gone?" said Annie. "Yes, both of the Houdinis left a while ago," the stage manager said. "Left? How?" said Jack. He and Annie had been watching the door the entire time. "Mr. Dewey took them into a secret exit out of the star dressing room, and Mr. Wilson always goes through it to the basement and out of the theater. Otherwise, they'd be mobbed by all sorts of crazy fans." "So, they were really gone?" said Jack. They don't call Harry the Master of Escape for nothing, Mr. Wilson said. You'd better change out of your costumes and get going, too. We'll be locking the building up soon, he said. Jack and Annie walked down the hall and into the dressing room. I can't believe it, Annie wailed. We didn't even get to tell them great show. Worse than that, we didn't get to find out the secret of greatness, said Jack. Worse than that, we didn't get to tell them the secret of greatness, said Jack. He held up his finger for the ring of truth. The ring didn't glow at all tonight. Well, I guess all we can do now is get dressed and look for them, said Annie. Jack and Annie quickly changed out of their tuxedos and back into their street clothes. Jack grabbed his bag and put his watch in the pocket of his pants. Come on, hurry, said Annie. She and Jack rushed to the back door of the theater. They ran down the dark alley, past the row of garbage cans, and out to the street. Surf Avenue was still bright with lights, and just as busy as before. The sidewalks were crowded with lots of people. Old-timey cars and horses and buggies filled the cobble street corners. They could be anywhere, said Jack. They could even be gone home. Let's try Luna Park, said Annie. Why would they go back there? Asked Jack, especially after getting trapped on the trip to the moon. I don't know. There's lots that they might want to do there, said Annie. She gasped. Ice cream, Jack and Annie said together at the same moment. They'd each remembered Bess saying, ice cream always comes after the show. The ice cream stand, said Annie. And fast, said Jack. Jack and Annie took off down the street, dodging people all along the way. They ran to the tall arches when the ticket seller and Charlotte in chariots were still welcoming people to Luna Park. Admission is 10 cents, one said. Jack and Annie dumped the rest of their pennies into the ticket seller's hands, and they took off, dashing down the broad avenue, weaving through a couple children and barkers on stilts and unicycles. When they came to the ice cream stand, they found a line of people waiting to buy cones. Panting, Jack looked up and down the line. The two Houdinis were nowhere to be found. Jack's spirit fell, but Annie poked him. What? Jack said. Annie pointed to the terrace. Jack looked up. Harry and Bess were sitting on the bench, side by side, holding ice cream cones. Their big hats hid their faces. Jack just laughed. Now I get it. They wear those huge hats so that fans don't recognize them, he said. Well, they can't fool us, said Annie. Come on. Annie and Jack headed down to the bench. There's the picture, guys. They're running past all the people they just recognized, Harry and Bess. I'm not going to show this to Cooper because he just fell asleep on the page before, so he's out like a light. As usual, I have to read this tomorrow to him. When they were close, Annie put his finger to his lips. Jack understood what he meant. Without greeting Harry or Bess, Jack and Annie sat down next to them. Great ice cream, huh? Said Annie. Great, said Bess, not looking up. Would you call it the greatest in the world? Asked Jack. Tilting her head, Bess peeked out from underneath the brim of her hat. She laughed loudly. Hey, Harry, look, she exclaimed. It's our little friends. Harry raised his hat and laughed too. The crazy kiddos, he said. So what's the story? What in the heck were you kids doing on stage tonight? We just love to perform, said Annie with a giggle. We just love to make fools of ourselves, said Jack. Making a fool of yourself is a brave thing to do, Harry said, smiling. That's what Aristotle once told us, said Annie, more or less. Jack glanced at the ring of truth. It wasn't glowing. Mr. Houdini, someone said. A man stood up in front of the bench. He started to clap. Oh, dear, mumbled Bess. You were unbelievable tonight, the man said. I never saw anything like what you did. The other people turned to look. They recognized Harry, too, and began gathering in front of the bench, telling him how great he was. Harry finished his ice cream cone. Then he stood up and started shaking hands with his admirers. Bess shook her head and sighed. He always is nice to people, she said to Jack and Annie, no matter how tired he is. Harry's fans kept asking questions. How do you do it? How do you escape from those handcuffs? How did you get your milk can? How did you get out of your milk can? First of all, let me assure you again that I have no supernatural powers, said Harry. It's all an illusion. The skills just happen to come easily to me. Always have. I remember when I was a kid. Jack looked at the ring of truth, but nothing. That's not a real story, Bess said quietly to Jack and Annie, her eyes twinkling. What isn't a real story? Annie asked her. Harry's always worked very, very hard, she said. He's worked his whole life. And when he was a little boy, he sold newspapers and flowers. He performed for the neighborhood children's circus. A few years later, he hopped trains and tried to get work in Milwaukee, Kansas City, New York. He practiced coin tricks and card tricks for hours and hours every day. He read every book that he could find on magic, and he practiced and practiced and practiced. Those skills did not come naturally to him. They came from hard work and more practice than most people could ever endure. Jack thought about how he and Annie had only done magic tricks once, with the help of the magic mist. No wonder they'd failed so spectacularly the second time. So his secret is hard work, said Annie. You've got it, kiddo, said Bess. But that's not such a big secret, is it? Anyone would have to work to be truly great at something. Practice makes perfect. Yeah, they would, said Jack. Practice does make perfect. Oh, wow, Annie whispered to Jack. She pointed to his hand. Jack looked down and smiled. The ring of truth was finally glowing. And there's the last picture of the chapter. And the next chapter is chapter 10. And it's a picture, I don't know if you guys can see it that well. It's a picture of Jack's hand glowing, his ring glowing. I gotta be kind of quiet because Cooper's starting to move. But the next chapter is chapter 10, and it's the best escape act ever. And we'll be reading that tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Cooper and Daddy read, and we'll be joining you guys again tomorrow for chapter 10 of Hurry Up Houdini by Mary Pope Osborne. Thanks again.